November 8, 1942. Sidi Farouk Beach, Algeria. The first American infantry units waded ashore in North Africa, carrying a weapon that would revolutionize warfare, though most of them didn't know how to use it. Among the equipment crates marked secret were 5,000 M1 rocket launchers, soon to be known as bazookas. Within 18 months, this simple tube costing $25 to produce would force the complete reorganization of German armored tactics and inspire desperate attempts to copy American innovation. The mathematics of armored warfare were about to be rewritten not by massive anti-tank guns or complex engineering, but by a steel tube that any infantry private could operate after minimal training. The bazooka would transform American soldiers from tank victims to tank hunters, giving every squad the power to destroy the Wehrmacht's most fearsome weapons. If you're enjoying this already, smash like, subscribe, and most importantly, give this video a hype. And I want to know, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country down in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories travel. The transformation began at Aberdeen Proving Ground, Maryland, on May 6, 1942. Colonel Leslie Skinner and Lieutenant Edward Uhl arrived for a demonstration of various anti-tank weapons. Their launcher was literally assembled that morning from materials found on site. As documented in Aberdeen Proving Ground's official history, Uhl had discovered a steel tube in a scrap pile that happened to be the right diameter. The sights were fashioned from a wire coat hanger bent with pliers. The story of the bazooka's invention actually began years earlier with Dr. Robert Goddard, the father of modern rocketry. In 1918, Goddard had developed a prototype rocket weapon for the US Army. But World War I ended before it could be tested in combat. His research notes, stored in the Smithsonian Institution, show detailed drawings of shoulder-fired rocket launchers remarkably similar to what would become the bazooka. However, post-war military budget cuts shelved the project for over 2 decades. The resurrection of rocket weapons came through an unlikely chain of events. In 1940, Captain Edward Uhl was assigned to work with Colonel Leslie Skinner on shaped charge warheads. Their initial focus was creating better anti-tank grenades, but the delivery problem remained unsolved. Traditional rifle grenades lacked range and accuracy, while mortars were too cumbersome for frontline infantry use. Uhl's breakthrough came while observing a demonstration of Dr. Goddard's rocket motors at the Naval Engineering Experiment Station in Annapolis. The sight of small rockets achieving remarkable velocities sparked the idea of combining Skinner's shaped charges with rocket propulsion. However, the project nearly died due to bureaucratic resistance. Several ordnance officials dismissed rocket weapons as Buck Rogers fantasies, unsuitable for serious military consideration. Army Ordnance had scheduled tests of British-designed spigot mortars, complex devices weighing over 100 pounds that required trained crews. The assembled generals, including Major General Gladion Barnes, Chief of Research and Engineering, initially paid little attention to Uhl's simple tube. The demonstration proved decisive. 5 different spigot mortars fired at a moving M3 Stuart tank from 150 yards. None scored a hit. The crews struggled with complex sighting systems, and the heavy weapons were difficult to traverse quickly. Then Uhl stepped forward. According to his own account preserved in Army Ordnance records, "I wore a welder's mask for that first shot, thinking there might be dangerous backblast. There wasn't. I put the tube on my shoulder, lined up those coat hanger sights, and squeezed the trigger. The rocket whooshed out and slammed directly into the tank's side. Then I reloaded in 5 seconds and hit it again." What made this demonstration particularly impressive was the contrast with existing anti-tank weapons. The standard 37mm anti-tank gun, nicknamed the pea-shooter by American troops, weighed 912 pounds and required a crew of 5 men. It could barely penetrate the frontal armor of newer German tanks. The British Boys anti-tank rifle, while portable, weighed 36 pounds and delivered such brutal recoil that it frequently injured operators. Its .55 caliber rounds were increasingly ineffective against improved German armor. General Barnes examined the weapon and reportedly exclaimed, "It looks like Bob Burns's bazooka," referring to the radio comedian's homemade musical instrument. The comedian Bob Burns had indeed popularized a crude musical instrument made from gas pipes and a funnel, which he called a bazooka after the sound it made. This casual naming would stick, though official documents continued to refer to the rocket launcher M1. Within minutes, Barnes ordered 5,000 units for immediate production. The speed of this decision reflected the desperate need for effective portable anti-tank weapons. Intelligence reports from the Eastern Front described devastating German tank attacks that overwhelmed Soviet forces lacking adequate anti-tank defenses. American military planners recognized that U.S. forces would face similar challenges in their upcoming offensive operations. General Electric's factories would begin manufacturing within weeks. By October 1942, General Electric and other contractors were producing 5,000 bazookas monthly. The speed was unprecedented, from improvised prototype to mass production in 5 months. Each M1 rocket launcher required just 20 pounds of steel, basic welding, and simple electrical components, costing $25 total. The M6 rockets cost $8 each to produce. The manufacturing process revealed American industrial ingenuity at its finest. Unlike complex weapons requiring specialized facilities, bazooka production could be distributed across numerous contractors. General Electric's main plant in Schenectady handled final assembly, but component production spread across 237 subcontractors in 34 states. Small machine shops in towns like Rockford, Illinois, and Waterbury, Connecticut, produced trigger mechanisms. Tube fabrication occurred in steel mills from Pittsburgh to Gary, Indiana. This distributed production model proved strategically brilliant. German intelligence, aware of bazooka effectiveness by 1943, attempted to target production facilities through sabotage operations. However, the weapon's simplicity meant that destroying any single facility had minimal impact on overall production. In contrast, German weapons like the Panther tank relied on a few centralized factories, making their production vulnerable to Allied bombing campaigns. The weapon specifications were remarkably simple. A seamless steel tube 54 inches long, 2.36 inches in diameter, weighing 13 pounds. 2 dry cell batteries in the shoulder stock provided electrical ignition. The rocket was inserted from the rear, a wire connected, and when fired could penetrate 3 to 4 inches of armor at 300 yards. The simplicity extended to quality control. Traditional weapons required precision tolerances and extensive testing. Bazooka tubes needed only basic dimensional accuracy. If the rocket fit and the electrical contacts worked, the weapon was combat-ready. This approach appalled European engineers trained in precision manufacturing, but proved devastatingly effective in wartime production. Captain Franklin Johnson, training officer at Fort Benning, documented in his official report, "We could train a man to use the bazooka effectively in one afternoon. The same soldier would need weeks to master a 37mm anti-tank gun. More importantly, 2 men with a bazooka could go anywhere infantry could go." Operation Torch, the Allied invasion of North Africa, began November 8, 1942. Among the 107,000 American and British troops were units of the 1st Infantry Division, 1st Armored Division, and 509th Parachute Infantry Regiment, equipped with the first bazookas to see combat. The debut was nearly catastrophic. As historians Michael and Glathar documented, General Eisenhower discovered the night before the invasion that troops had received no training on the new weapon. The bazookas had arrived in sealed crates marked "secret," with orders not to open them until the operation began. No training materials were included. This security mishap reflected broader communication problems in the rapidly expanding U.S. military. The weapon's classification as secret prevented even basic training manuals from being distributed. Ironically, the same security measures designed to protect the bazooka from German intelligence nearly rendered it useless to American forces. According to the 1st Infantry Division's after-action report, soldiers had to figure out the weapon's operation under fire. Many early M6 rockets, damaged by moisture during the sea voyage, failed to fire or detonated prematurely. The humid North African climate, combined with inadequate packaging, caused electrical failures in the ignition system. The 509th Parachute Infantry Regiment reported that of their first 20 rockets fired in combat, only 7 functioned properly. Paratroopers faced additional challenges as the bazooka's length made it awkward to carry during jumps. Several weapons were damaged during parachute landings, leaving troops without anti-tank capability when they needed it most. Despite these problems, some units achieved success. The 1st Armored Division's combat log for November 10, 1942, records Anti-tank team destroyed 2 Vichy French Renault tanks with new rocket weapon near Port Lyautey, weapon effective when functioning properly. These early engagements provided crucial lessons. Moisture protection became a priority, leading to improved rocket packaging. The electrical ignition system, while simple, proved vulnerable to corrosion and impact damage. These issues would drive the development of the improved M1A1 model with reinforced electrical contacts and better weather sealing. The German capture of American bazookas occurred during the Battle of Kasserine Pass, February 14 to 24, 1943, when elements of the Afrika Korps' 10th and 21st Panzer Divisions overran American positions at Sidi Bouzid. They captured substantial quantities of equipment from the retreating U.S. Second Corps. According to German military archives, 5 intact M1 bazookas and approximately 20 M6 rockets were immediately sent to Berlin for analysis. The Wehrmacht weapons testing facility at Kummersdorf received the weapons on February 28, 1943. The German reaction revealed both professional admiration and strategic concern. Oberst Colonel Walter Dornberger, director of the German rocket program, personally examined the captured bazookas. His report, preserved in the Bundesarchiv, noted with grudging respect, "The Americans have achieved with simple engineering what we attempted through complex technology. This weapon represents a philosophical breakthrough in infantry anti-tank capability." German technical reports from March 1943, now held in the Bundesarchiv, reveal their assessment. The American rocket launcher represents a simple solution to infantry anti-tank capability. Weight, 6 kilograms. Production requirements, minimal. Effectiveness, penetrates 80 mm armor at 100 meters. This weapon can be mass-produced using basic industrial facilities. The Germans immediately began developing their own version, but their approach reflected fundamental differences in military philosophy. While American designers prioritized simplicity and mass production, German engineers instinctively sought technical superiority. They increased the warhead diameter from 60 mm to 88 mm, requiring a more complex firing mechanism and heavier construction. The German development process, though ultimately successful, highlighted the tension between perfection and practicality. Dr. Heinrich Langweiler, head of the development team, insisted on extensive testing that delayed production by 6 months. His perfectionist approach, while admirable from an engineering standpoint, meant that effective German rocket weapons didn't reach frontline troops until late 1943. By September 1943, the Raketenpanzerbüchse 43 Panzerschreck entered production. German production records show they manufactured 289,151 Panzerschrecks during the war. Impressive, but still far short of American production. The Panzerschreck's technical superiority came at a cost. Its 88 mm warhead could penetrate 160 mm of armor compared to the bazooka's 100 mm capability. However, the weapon weighed 24 pounds versus the bazooka's 15 pounds, required more complex manufacturing, and generated dangerous backblast that necessitated a protective shield for the operator. Operation Husky, the invasion of Sicily beginning July 10, 1943, marked the bazooka's maturation as a weapon system. American forces now fielded the improved M1A1 model with better electrical contacts and the more reliable M6A1 rocket. The lessons learned in North Africa had been thoroughly incorporated. New packaging protected rockets from moisture, while improved training ensured soldiers understood the weapon's capabilities and limitations. Most importantly, the bazooka had been integrated into standard infantry tactics rather than treated as a novelty weapon. The most notable bazooka success in Sicily occurred near Biscari in July 1943. According to U.S. Army Ordnance Observer reports, an M1A1 bazooka team from the 82nd Airborne Division achieved an extraordinary hit on a Tiger I tank, penetrating through the driver's vision slot, one of the vehicle's few vulnerable points. This engagement became legendary among American forces, though it represented exceptional marksmanship rather than typical performance. Staff Sergeant Robert Murphy and Private First Class James Rodriguez had stalked the Tiger tank for over an hour, waiting for the perfect shot. Their success required intimate knowledge of German tank design, precise range estimation, and nerves of steel. While this represented exceptional marksmanship rather than typical performance, it demonstrated the weapon's potential. The Hermann Göring Panzer Division's War Diary for July 11, 1943, noted, "Enemy infantry equipped with rocket weapons capable of destroying armor at 100 to 150 meters. Tank commanders must exercise increased caution in urban areas." Colonel James Gavin, commanding the 505th Parachute Infantry Regiment, reported, "The bazooka has given the American infantryman confidence against enemy armor. In Sicily, we destroyed 17 German tanks with bazookas. The psychological effect exceeds even the physical destruction." The psychological impact proved as important as the physical damage. German tank crews, previously confident in their armor superiority, now had to consider the threat from every infantry position. This caution slowed German counterattacks and reduced the effectiveness of their armored reserves. During the Italian campaign beginning September 1943, the bazooka evolved from anti-tank weapon to universal problem solver. The mountainous terrain and medieval towns provided ideal conditions for bazooka employment. The December 1943 Battle for Ortona demonstrated the weapon's versatility. According to Canadian military records, bazooka teams developed mouse-holing tactics, blowing passages through buildings rather than using dangerous streets. The 1st Canadian Infantry Division's War Diary recorded, "American rocket launchers proved invaluable in street fighting, used against fortified houses with good effect." Italian urban warfare revealed new applications for the bazooka. The shaped charge warhead, designed to penetrate tank armor, proved equally effective against reinforced concrete fortifications. Ancient stone buildings, some dating to the Middle Ages, could be breached with a single well-placed rocket. American and Canadian forces developed specialized urban tactics around the bazooka. Thunder teams consisted of a bazooka gunner, loader, and rifle squad for protection. These teams would infiltrate buildings, create firing positions, and systematically destroy German strongpoints. The technique proved so effective that it was incorporated into official training manuals. The mountainous Italian terrain favored defensive operations, but the bazooka helped overcome this advantage. German positions carved into hillsides, seemingly impregnable to conventional weapons, proved vulnerable to rocket attack. The weapon's portability allowed infantry to carry it to positions inaccessible to artillery or tanks. By January 1944, American production had reached 20,000 bazookas monthly. The M9 model had been introduced, featuring a breakdown design for airborne troops and magneto-ignition that eliminated batteries. The M6A3 rocket with its blunt nose prevented deflection on angled armor. The M9's two-piece design addressed a long-standing complaint from paratroopers and mountain infantry. The original 54-inch tube was awkward to carry in confined spaces or rough terrain. The breakdown version allowed the weapon to be separated into two 27-inch sections, making it much more portable while maintaining the same ballistic performance. Fifth Army reports from the Italian campaign documented that every infantry battalion now possessed 24 to 36 bazookas. The weapon had become standard equipment, as common as machine guns. This proliferation reflected not just increased production, but also tactical evolution. Battalion commanders had learned to integrate bazooka teams into every major operation. The proliferation of bazookas forced fundamental changes in German armored doctrine. Wehrmacht Training Directive 43/18, issued December 1943, mandated tanks will not operate in urban areas without infantry support. All buildings must be cleared before armor advances. Minimum 100-meter distance from uncleared structures. Shirts and side skirts must be maintained on all vehicles. These doctrinal changes represented a complete reversal of German armored philosophy. The blitzkrieg tactics that had brought victory in Poland, France, and early Russia relied on independent tank operations and rapid exploitation of breakthroughs. The bazooka threat forced a return to methodical World War I-style advances. German tank crews began welding extra track links, sandbags, and concrete to their vehicles for additional protection. The Zimmerit anti-magnetic paste, applied from December 1943 to October 1944, was partially a response to shaped charge threats. A captured document from the 2nd SS Panzer Division, dated March 1944, stated, "American rocket launchers present in every infantry unit. Speed and shock tactics no longer viable. Methodical advance with infantry screening required. The improvisations revealed German desperation. Tank crews welded spare wheels, bed frames, and even park benches to their vehicles, creating bizarre-looking but theoretically effective standoff armor. These modifications added weight and complexity while reducing mechanical reliability. The German response also included tactical adaptations. Tank commanders began using indirect fire positions whenever possible, avoiding direct confrontation with infantry. When direct contact was unavoidable, tanks moved in pairs with mutually supporting machine gun fire to suppress bazooka teams. By D-Day, June 6, 1944, the bazooka had become integral to American infantry organization. Among the 156,000 Allied troops landing in Normandy were thousands of bazooka teams equipped with the latest M9A1 model, featuring an optical sight. The bocage country of Normandy, dense hedgerows creating natural defensive positions, proved ideal for bazooka employment. First Army records show that in the 6 weeks following D-Day, bazookas accounted for 12% of German armored vehicle losses in the American sector. The Norman hedgerows, some dating back centuries, created a unique battlefield environment. These living fortifications, consisting of earth embankments topped with thick vegetation, provided perfect concealment for bazooka teams. American infantry learned to use the hedgerow's maze-like structure to approach German positions undetected. The 29th Infantry Division's after-action report for June-July 1944 noted, bazooka teams operating in hedgerow country achieved high success rates against enemy armor. German tanks increasingly reluctant to advance without extensive infantry reconnaissance. Sergeant John Hamilton of the 116th Infantry Regiment described a typical hedgerow engagement. We waited in a gap between hedgerows as a Panzer IV approached. The tank crew couldn't see us through the vegetation. My loader and I were maybe 75 yards away when I fired. The rocket hit the side armor and penetrated. The crew bailed out immediately. The psychological impact extended beyond tank crews. German infantry, witnessing their armored support being destroyed by seemingly invisible enemies, became increasingly cautious. This hesitation disrupted German defensive plans and contributed to the Allied breakout from Normandy. German production records reveal the industrial reality behind their response to the bazooka. The Panzerschreck, while technically superior with its 88mm warhead, capable of 160mm armor penetration versus the bazooka's 100mm, was more complex to manufacture. Production comparison from German and American archives. Panzerschreck, 24.18 man-hours to produce, cost 150 Reichsmarks bazooka. M9, 2.4 man-hours to produce, cost $25. By August 1944, America had produced over 400,000 bazookas. Germany managed 289,151 Panzerschrecks during the entire war. The Americans were outproducing German copies by nearly 2-to-1, while simultaneously producing simpler, more portable weapons. The production statistics revealed fundamental differences in industrial philosophy. American factories emphasized standardization, interchangeable parts, and assembly line efficiency. Workers with minimal training could produce bazooka components, and the simple design minimized quality control requirements. German production, by contrast, relied heavily on skilled craftsmen and precision manufacturing. While this approach produced superior individual weapons, it limited production capacity and required resources that became increasingly scarce as the war progressed. The bazooka's production success also demonstrated American logistical superiority. Raw materials, steel tubing, simple electronics, and basic chemicals for rocket propellant were readily available from domestic sources. Germany, increasingly isolated by Allied blockade, struggled to obtain necessary materials for weapons production. The German Ardennes offensive in December 1944 provided severe testing of the bazooka under winter conditions. The 99th Infantry Division's combat interviews, conducted immediately after the battle, documented numerous bazooka engagements. Technical Sergeant Donald Bracken, 394th Infantry Regiment, reported destroying a Panther tank near Rocherath on December 17, 1944. The rocket hit the rear engine deck, the tank caught fire and the crew abandoned it. Range was about 75 yards. The extreme cold created documented problems. Battery failures in remaining M1A1 models still in service required soldiers to warm batteries inside their jackets. The 2nd Infantry Division reported that rocket propellant burned differently in sub-zero temperatures, affecting range and accuracy. Winter conditions also affected German armor effectiveness. Tank engines required extended warm-up periods, making them vulnerable to attack. Ice-covered roads limited mobility, forcing German tanks to use predictable routes where bazooka teams could prepare ambushes. Private Robert Chen of the 106th Infantry Division described the harsh conditions. "We kept the rockets inside our sleeping bags to prevent the propellant from freezing. The metal launcher got so cold it would stick to your bare hands. But when a Panzer came down that road, you forgot about the cold real quick." Despite these challenges, 18th Airborne Corps records show bazookas destroyed or disabled 89 German armored vehicles during the Battle of the Bulge. The weapon's continued effectiveness under extreme conditions validated its robust design. One of the most remarkable bazooka employments came from Major Charles Bazooka Charlie Carpenter of the 4th Armored Division. As documented in his Silver Star citation and confirmed by multiple witnesses, Carpenter mounted 6 M9 bazookas on his L4 Grasshopper observation aircraft. His combat record, verified by 4th Armored Division records, September 20, 1944, 2 Panther tanks destroyed near Aracourt October 1944, 1 Panzer IV destroyed November 1944, 3 armored vehicles destroyed. Carpenter's innovation represented pure American ingenuity. Recognizing that tanks were vulnerable from above, he convinced maintenance crews to weld mounting brackets to his aircraft's wing struts. The modification required careful weight and balance calculations to maintain flight characteristics. The psychological impact of aerial bazooka attacks proved as significant as the physical damage. German tank crews, already cautious about infantry rocket teams, now had to consider threats from above. This three-dimensional threat environment severely constrained German tactical options. Carpenter's aircraft, complete with mounting brackets for the bazookas, was discovered in an Austrian museum in 2017 and has been restored. His innovation demonstrated the weapon's versatility beyond conventional infantry use. Other innovative applications emerged throughout the war. Naval forces used bazookas against Japanese bunkers during Pacific Island assaults. Army Air Force ground crews employed them to clear damaged aircraft from runways. Even military police used bazooka rockets without warheads to launch grappling lines across rivers and ravines. Final production statistics from U.S. Army Ordnance records: bazooka production. M1, 112,790 units. M1A1, approximately 60,000 units. M9, 26,087 units. M9A1, approximately 277,800 units. M18 aluminum, 500 units. Total 476,628 units. Rocket production 1942, 500,000 1943, 2,847,000 1944, 8,566,000 1945, 4,650,000. Total 15,563,000 unit costs. 1945. M1 per M. 9 bazooka, $19 to 25 million. 6 A3 rocket, $8.85. Complete system, launcher plus 10 rockets. Approximately $110. For comparison, according to German production records, Panzer IV tank, $103,000. Reichsmarks, approximately $41,000. Panther tank, 117,000 Reichsmarks, approximately $47,000. Tiger Wien tank, 250,000 Reichsmarks, approximately $100,000. The economic analysis revealed the bazooka's revolutionary cost-effectiveness. A single bazooka team could theoretically engage targets worth hundreds of times the weapon's cost. This economic leverage fundamentally altered military procurement priorities. U.S. Army Ordnance conducted extensive analysis of bazooka effectiveness in 1945. Their findings: average engagement range 75 yards, hit probability at 50 yards 85%, hit probability at 100 yards 42%, hit probability at 150 yards 0%. 150 yards, 18%. Armor penetration, 3.5 to 4 inches, 89 to 102 millimeters. With M6A3 rocket tank destruction analysis from European Theatre from First Army Records. Tanks destroyed by other tanks, 38% tanks destroyed by anti-tank guns, 31% tanks destroyed by aircraft, 14% tanks destroyed by bazookas, 12% tanks destroyed by mines, 5%. These statistics likely understate bazooka effectiveness, as many German tanks were abandoned when threatened by rocket teams rather than actually destroyed. The psychological impact often achieved the same tactical result as physical destruction. Post-war interrogations of German officers conducted by the U.S. Strategic Bombing Survey revealed consistent themes about the bazooka's impact. While specific document citations are often general in these interrogation summaries, the pattern is clear. Field Marshal Albert Kesselring, German commander in Italy, stated in his interrogation that American rocket launchers forced fundamental changes in German tactical doctrine. The speed and shock tactics that had brought victory in 1940 to 1941 were negated by the threat of infantry anti-tank weapons. General Heinz Guderian, in his post-war writings, acknowledged that the proliferation of infantry anti-tank weapons, like the bazooka, invalidated the independent operation of armor that had been central to German doctrine. Colonel Johann von Kielmansegg, Chief of Staff of the 5th Panzer Army, provided detailed analysis in his post-war debriefing. The American rocket launcher created a tactical revolution. Previously, our tanks could operate with confidence against infantry. After 1943, every building, every hedgerow became a potential ambush site. This forced us to advance methodically, losing our speed advantage. Lend-Lease records document bazooka distribution to Allied forces. Soviet Union, 8,000 units United Kingdom, 12,000 units Free French forces, 15,000 units Chinese nationalist forces, 3,000 units. Other Allied nations, 23,628 units. Soviet military archives indicate the Red Army found the bazooka effective but preferred their own anti-tank rifles, and later the RPG-2, developed partially from bazooka principles. The Soviets appreciated the weapon's simplicity but criticized its relatively light warhead compared to their 14.5mm anti-tank rifles. British forces integrated bazookas into their PIAT, projector infantry anti-tank units, using both weapons depending on tactical requirements. The PIAT's spring-loaded mechanism was more complex but didn't reveal the shooter's position with a rocket exhaust trail. Free French forces, equipment often limited, found bazookas particularly valuable during the liberation of France. The weapon's portability made it ideal for resistance operations and urban fighting in French cities. While less publicized than European use, bazookas proved valuable in the Pacific. Marine Corps records from Saipan, June to July 1944, show bazookas destroyed 28 Japanese tanks and countless fortified positions. The weapon's versatility was demonstrated through various rocket types. M6A3, Standard Anti-Tank HEAT, M10, White Phosphorus Incendiary/Smoke, M7A3, Practice round marine units particularly valued white phosphorus rockets for clearing cave complexes and destroying Japanese bunkers. The incendiary effect of white phosphorus proved devastating against wooden fortifications and could flush enemy troops from concealed positions. At Iwo Jima, the 5th Marine Division expended 1,847 bazooka rockets in 6 weeks of fighting. The volcanic island's cave systems, some carved deep into Mount Suribachi, required direct-fire weapons that could engage specific targets. Artillery bombardment, while massive, often failed to reach deeply buried Japanese positions. Lieutenant Colonel Robert Williams, commanding the 3rd Battalion, 27th Marines, reported, "The bazooka was our most effective weapon against Japanese cave positions. White phosphorus rockets could reach targets that artillery couldn't touch." The psychological effect on Japanese defenders was remarkable. They often abandoned positions after a few rocket hits. The bazooka's continued relevance was proven in Korea when initial M9A1 bazookas proved inadequate against T-34/85 tanks due to degraded ammunition and improved Soviet armor. However, the rapid development and deployment of the M20 Super Bazooka, with its 3.5-inch rocket, demonstrated the weapon system's adaptability. Marine Sergeant Robert Bennett's combat report from Pusan, September 1950, stated, "The new 3.5-inch bazookas stopped T-34s cold. First shot, first kill at 125 yards. The psychological shift was immediate. This rapid adaptation, from problem identification to solution deployment in under 90 days, demonstrated the flexibility of the simple bazooka design. The M20's larger warhead could penetrate 280 millimeters of armor, making it effective against any tank in the world at that time. The bazooka embodied American industrial philosophy in World War II. Analysis of production methods reveals manufacturing simplicity. Any factory with basic welding equipment could produce tubes. No special alloys or precision machining required. Assembly time, 2.4 man-hours per unit. Training time for assembly workers, 2 days distribution efficiency. By 1944, every U.S. infantry company had 5 bazookas. Every infantry battalion had 25 to 35 bazookas. Ammunition was readily available through standard supply chains. This contrasted sharply with German production philosophy, which emphasized technical superiority over quantity. The Wehrmacht's focus on complex, high-performance weapons limited production capacity and field maintenance capability. The distributed manufacturing model represented industrial democracy in action. Small-town machine shops contributed to the war effort alongside major corporations. This approach not only maximized production, but also maintained civilian morale by involving local communities in the war effort. U.S. Army training records document the bazooka's impact on infantry doctrine. Pre-bazooka, 1941, infantry anti-tank training focused on anti-tank rifles, ineffective against medium tanks, anti-tank grenades, suicidal close-range attacks, Molotov, cocktails, desperate measures. Post-bazooka, 1943 to 1945. Every infantry soldier trained in bazooka operation, 2-hour basic course, tank hunting tactics, coordinated anti-tank defense. The psychological transformation was documented in infantry school. Reports, the bazooka has given the infantry soldier confidence against armor. Previous tank panic has been replaced by aggressive tank hunting. Combat units developed innovative bazooka tactics documented in after-action reports. Urban combat, from 3rd Infantry Division, Italy. 2-man teams operating from upper floors, targeting tank vision blocks and turret rings, mouse-holing through buildings. Bocage fighting, from the 29th Infantry Division, Normandy. Concealed positions in hedgerows, targeting side and rear armor. Coordinated multi-team ambushes. Winter warfare, from 99th Infantry Division, Ardennes. Warming rockets inside clothing. Snow camouflage for approach targeting engine compartments for fire kills. Cost-effectiveness analysis from Army Ordnance. To destroy 1 German tank using tanks, average 2.5 Shermans. Lost per German tank destroyed. Approximately $187,500 in tank losses. Using anti-tank guns, gun and crew training, cost approximately $45,000. Using aircraft, including aircraft losses and munitions, approximately $85,000. Using bazookas, average 5. Rockets and occasional launcher loss, approximately $50. This 1,000 to 1 cost advantage made the bazooka economically revolutionary. For the price of 1 Sherman tank, $75,000, the Army could purchase 3,000 bazookas and 20,000 rockets. The bazooka principle, simple, man-portable anti-tank weapons, became universal in military doctrine. Direct descendants include M72, Lejeune, light anti-tank weapon. At-4 anti-tank weapon, Carl Gustaf recoilless rifle Soviet RPG series, over 40 nations produced bazooka variants or copies. The fundamental concept of giving infantry portable anti-tank capability remains central to military organization worldwide. The German Tank Museum at Munster includes a permanent display on anti-tank weapons featuring the American bazooka. Their official placard states, "The American M1 rocket launcher bazooka revolutionized anti-tank warfare. Simple, cheap, and effective, It could be operated by any soldier with minimal training. German forces captured examples in Tunisia in 1943 and immediately recognized its potential, developing the Panzerschreck in response. By war's end, the presence of bazookas in every American unit had neutralized German armored superiority. The bazooka underwent continuous improvement based on combat feedback. M1, June 1942. Original version, battery ignition, 112,790 produced. M1A1, June 1943. Reinforced tube, improved contacts, approximately 60,000 produced. M9, October 1943. Two-piece design, magneto-ignition, 26,877, produced. M9A1, June 1944. Optical sight, improved coupling, approximately 277,800, produced. M18, April 1945. Aluminum construction, 500 produced before war's end. Rocket development paralleled launcher improvement. M6, pointed nose, 3-inch penetration. M6A3, blunt nose preventing deflection, 4-inch penetration. M10, white phosphorus warhead. M7A3, practice round the U.S. Army Military History Institute's comprehensive 1962 study concluded, no single weapon changed battlefield dynamics more than the rocket launcher M1/M9 bazooka. It democratized anti-tank warfare, giving every infantry unit the capability to defeat armor. The German development of their own rocket weapons in response validated the concept. In terms of cost-effectiveness, tactical impact, and strategic significance, the bazooka ranks among the most important weapons of World War II. Analysis of German operational records reveals the bazooka's strategic effect. Pre-bazooka, 1940 to 1942. German armor operated independently with confidence. Infantry fled from approaching tanks. Breakthrough and exploitation tactics succeeded. Post-bazooka, 1943 to 1945. Armor required constant infantry support. Every building and hedgerow became potential. Ambush site breakthrough operations became costly and slow. This operational shift, documented in Wehrmacht war diaries, fundamentally altered European battlefield dynamics. The bazooka production represented American industrial capability at its peak. March 1945. 42,000 launchers produced, 540,000 rockets produced. 237 subcontractors, involved 34 states with production facilities. This distributed production model made the aid supply chain resilient. No single bombing raid or sabotage could significantly impact bazooka availability. Unlike German production concentrated in vulnerable facilities, the bazooka's simplicity enabled its widespread adoption. Training records show average soldier achieved basic proficiency in 2 hours. Combat proficiency typically achieved after 5 practice rounds. No special physical requirements unlike anti-tank rifles, effective use by soldiers of all backgrounds. This democratization of anti-tank capability meant that any infantry squad could engage armor, fundamentally changing battlefield dynamics. Comparing contemporary anti-tank weapons reveals the bazooka's advantages. British Piat, weight 32 pounds versus bazooka's 15 pounds. Range 100 yards versus bazooka's 300 yards. Reliability issues in wet conditions. Complex spring mechanism requiring strength to cock Soviet PTRD anti-tank rifle, weight 38 pounds, limited effectiveness against medium tanks, severe recoil requiring sturdy soldiers, single shot requiring precise marksmanship. German Panzerfaust, single-use disposable weapon, very short, range 30 to 60 meters, no sighting system, dangerous backblast area. The bazooka offered the best combination of portability, effectiveness, range, and reusability. The bazooka's strategic impact extended beyond tactical employment. Force structure enabled lighter, more mobile infantry divisions. Logistics, simple ammunition supply compared to anti-tank guns. Training, rapid conversion of civilians to tank. Hunters' psychology, transformed infantry from victims to hunters. Economics, massive cost advantage over traditional anti-tank weapons. These factors combined to give American forces a significant advantage in combined arms operations. The bazooka succeeded through simplicity rather than sophistication. While Germany developed technically superior weapons, America's ability to mass-produce and widely distribute good enough technology proved decisive. By war's end, virtually every American infantry squad possessed anti-tank capability. This proliferation of firepower to the lowest tactical level exemplified American military doctrine, trusting the citizen soldier with powerful weapons and the training to use them effectively.